Freedom Marchers, welcome back. It's my second live stream of the day. Snapzilla Gorilla here. This is Freedom's March. Yeah, so I wanted to continue to talk about this issue with Cynthia G on Fox Soul. And you know, it's not just about Cynthia G on Fox Soul. It's about, you know, all those individuals who, you know, that want to just put down the black community. That's the bottom line to it. Cynthia G is not so much putting down the black community as far as she's putting down black men as a whole. But, you know, I don't want to just talk about this problem that we have with Cynthia G and other people like her, other black individuals who put themselves out there in the public eye and, you know, essentially go after black people. I want to talk about some of the solutions that we can, some of the solutions to these problems, right? Because we are being attacked from all angles, right? And, you know, black people, black men in particular are being attacked from all angles. And it's not just about black men, not just about black women, not just about black people. It's also about regular everyday folk. That's what we have to understand. It's not just black people being attacked. We're just being attacked in different ways, right? We have to figure out how to bring everybody to that understanding that our lives are under attack. Our children in particular are under attack. Our freedoms are constantly under attack. Not only are they under attack, but they have been stripped from us. They have our freedoms, our individual freedoms have been stripped from us one by one over the course of 200 years. And what's ironic about it is the so-called forefathers of this country, right, fought tooth and nail against the crown to obtain freedom. And then they came up with these Federalist Papers and said, you know what, we should centralize our power. We should centralize the government to ensure that we don't have issues with foreign control, like so that we can protect ourselves against the crown in case they try to get and take what we have and take our freedoms. But somehow we ended up giving up more freedoms. We ended up giving up most of the freedoms that we obtained fighting the Revolutionary War. And the reason I'm saying we is because I'm trying to keep it in the realm of, you know, everybody outside of the elite class is oppressed, right? We're all having our freedoms taken away, right? The freedom to keep and bear arms, the freedom to free speech, right? The freedom of speech, the freedom to be secure in our houses, person, papers, and effects, all that shit, all those things are being taken away from us. And so what we did, what our so-called forefathers did to get our freedoms back, the Federalists essentially said, you know what, we're going to do what the Crown was doing. We're going to do what King George was doing, only we're going to do it right here in the United States. And we're going to pass it off as though, you know, we want to protect the freedom of the people. But they didn't have a Bill of Rights when they first came up with the Constitution. I don't know if you guys understand that. There was no Bill of Rights. It was the anti-federalists who said we needed to have these Bill of Rights in the Constitution as we do in our individual states, so that there's further protection for the people. So they didn't even want that initially. But if we're going to get anywhere, right, if we're going to get anywhere, we have to understand what we're doing, right? We have to understand what we're asking for and who we're asking for it from, right? Cynthia G wants, well, I don't know, Cynthia G acts like she wants black men to step it up. But in what way would we step it up, right? And this is the funny thing is, she thinks we need to step it up, but she doesn't want to come up with any solutions or any ideas because she's a woman and we're the man, and we're supposed to do that. But if we came up with ideas and solutions, would that be good enough? This is what you got to do, right? This is what you got to do. You have to remove the entity that is creating the tyranny. It has to be destroyed, right? That's the only way this can be done. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that system has to be destroyed. Because that system operates in a certain manner. That system needs certain things in place for it to work and to operate. If your goal is not to remove that system or destroy that system, then anything that you have in mind in terms of what we're supposed to do as a people is not going to work out, because that system is too entrenched. This system wasn't built 100 years ago, it wasn't built 30 years ago, it wasn't built 50 years ago. It's been 200 years, right? And another 300 years before that, where this culture was created, right? Because this shit, the shit that they obtained in this country did not come about peaceably. They didn't achieve it through peace, right? They achieved it through conquest. They had to displace people, right? You're talking about a system that was built off of genocide and slavery, right? It was built off those things, on top of being controlled by the crown for the first few hundred years, right? And when they removed the crown from the equation, they came up with their own form of authoritarianism that thrived for over 200 years, right? So you have to remove the system. Even those individuals that, you got those sovereign citizens. How do they achieve their sovereignty, right? On paper. And that's the key word. That's the key term. On paper, they achieve their sovereignty. In what manner? They have to fill out paperwork. Oh, well, let me go to the government that oppresses me and fill out paperwork to get permission to operate as a sovereign citizen. So even when you become sovereign on paper, that's all you're doing. You're gaining your sovereignty on paper, and that's it. So yeah, you can become a sovereign citizen on paper. You can go buy some land, right? You can make that land system. You can do regenerative farming, right? Which is the best kind of farming, right? Is regenerative farming. You can have your own well system. You can have your own. You can have solar panels, wind power, however you want to sustain your property. You can do all that. But you still have to get permission from the government to do that shit, essentially, right? So if you're a sovereign citizen operating your own land, do you think that that's going to stop the government from coming to take your land if they felt like it? If they say, you know what, you're not sovereign today, I'm going to come take your shit. Do you think that, oh, well, on paper, I'm a sovereign citizen. Do you think that's going to stop them? What if you have to do shit off your land? What if you have to go back into United States territory? And by the way, your land isn't sovereign. You're not sovereign over your land. You're sovereign over your own person. But you're not really. So what happens when you have to travel outside of your land? You still have to, you still have to, you're still under the rulership of the United States government. You're still operating on government land, on all that type of shit. So what happens if you come into contact with law enforcement and you're a sovereign citizen and you're not on your own land? You're driving through a state and you get pulled over and they want to fuck with you. What's going to stop them from fucking with you just because you're a sovereign citizen? Because you're going to hold up a paper that's... No, that's not how it works. As a matter of fact, I think last year there was a group of black sovereign people, right? There were Moors that got into an altercation with the Popo. The Popo, they were in a convoy. They got pulled over. They got into some shootout, and cats got arrested. Right? People were arrested and all type of shit. That sovereign citizenship did not help them. You understand what I'm saying? That did not stop the police from fucking with them, even though they were just filling up fuel on the side of the road with their little gas tanks. It didn't stop the government from doing that. So Cynthia G might be right? She might be right in some ways. She might be right about, there are not enough black men stepping up. But the method, her methods are not very productive, right? They're not productive at all. We need ideas and people that are gonna push progress. You're not pushing progress for the black community by telling black women to divest from black men and not to have babies with them. That's not productive at all, right? That's not. That's kind of crazy. But if you want to say, yo, what can we as black women do to help our black men and encourage them to do better by us? I mean, is that too much to ask for? To ask for support from black women? Is that too much? Or should it all be on the shoulders of the black man? That's a real question. Y'all let me know in the comment section. Should black men shoulder all the responsibility 100% without any support from black women? Because there are black women out there that are equally destructive to the black community. If you want to go there, right? If you want to say that all roads lead through black men, you're being disingenuous. If you're saying, nope, women cannot have any responsibility whatsoever for the plight of black people, and you don't want to say that white supremacy isn't also responsible for it, and I'm talking about white supremacy throughout history. Now, I'm not just talking about white supremacy now. I'm talking about white supremacy throughout history that got us in the position we're in today. Y'all can say whatever you want. Oh, that was 100 years. No. All right. When slavery ended, right? When chattel slavery ended, black people weren't automatically bestowed with a shoestring, a bootstrap, right? We weren't magically given all these advantages as soon as slavery ended. Like, it wasn't like, oh, slavery ended on Thursday. On Friday, you guys are going to have, you got a silver spoon over here. You got bootstraps over there. Oh, here, go over here. You can do whatever you want. You can achieve whatever you want, no matter what. And then it wasn't like automatically white racists became benevolent, accepting individuals. No, this motherfucker was still racist. As a matter of fact, white slave owners got reparations for having, because they had to free slaves. You think that white slave owners and white racist folks, you think they just like, oh man, oh well, Slavery's good. Slavery stopped. Okay, well, I love black people now. Oh, no, it didn't fucking happen like that. Not even in the North, right? Abraham Lincoln didn't even like black people. So what happened? You had over 100, almost 100 years more of fucking Jim Crow laws. Then you had the civil rights movement. We were still trying to get shit cracking for us, right? And then you had COINTELPRO, and then you had the crack epidemic and all that type of shit. I mean, all this shit. You think that this shit just, that our fault too? Was Jim Crow black people's fault? Was the civil rights movement being fucking dismantled and repurposed? Was that black men's fault too? Or what? Help me understand how much responsibility we're supposed to have. Oh, maybe we shouldn't allow slavery to happen in the first place, right? Right? We should have just went the way of the Native American, right? Look at what happened with the Native Americans. They fought against slavery. You want to say slavery is a choice? They wouldn't allow themselves to be slaves. They were damn near wiped off the goddamn planet. Whole tribes were destroyed. So would that be better if we were packed up into neat little reservations? And what was supposed to happen if the slave drivers and the slave owners and then the Europeans, if they had all the boomsticks and we had bows and arrows and blowguns and spears, and they had these balls of these projectiles that traveled much faster than an arrow would, and it was much more accurate and much more deadly. What if they had? What were we supposed to do? What about the blacks? The black people that sold blacks? What about the Africans that sold people into slavery? What about them? Right? Is that what you're going to bring up? Okay, let me tell you something about this. First off, all the slaves that were here in the United States did not come from Africa. Okay, many of the black people that were here before Columbus even showed up, right? There weren't millions of Africans brought over here in the transatlantic slave trade. That's not how it happened. Matter of fact, the oldest skull found in the Americas, in South America, was Negroid, right? The oldest, older than the Mongoloid skulls that were found here. So this history that we were given by the victors, right, the conquerors, I wouldn't put too much trust into that. So we should just, none of that shit should matter. Slavery shouldn't matter. COINTELPRO, Jim Crow, that shit shouldn't matter. Redlining, right? Redistricting. What they call that? Redistricting, redlining, right? None of that shit should matter. No, we just supposed to magically appear with all the advantages and resources in the world, right? How do you think how do you think these white folks got all the resources they got? They slaughtered and genocided their way to these resources, and they're continuing to do that today, right? All that shit in the Middle East, all the wars that we started in the Middle East, all the destabilization in the Middle East. How do you think that came about? You think that was because they wanted to give democracy to the motherfucking Arabs? No. It's because of resources. They fucking manipulated and deceived their way into the Middle East, destabilized that motherfucker, and got all the resources out of that bitch, right? When Gaddafi wanted to go to the gold standard and form an African Union, they couldn't have that. All right? They made sure that he was wiped out. And now they got slavery in Libya. And what? Oh, okay, so are Arab men, should they just, it's their fault? that, you know, some other motherfuckers came in and destroyed their fucking world, destabilized their region, the whole region of the Middle East, with much more advanced weaponry and sanctions and all this type of shit. Predator drones. Should what would you want them to do? Should the Arab men, should they fly into the sky and punch holes through the goddamn Predator drones? No, it doesn't work like that. There's a reason black people are in the position that we're in today, as a whole, right? There's a reason that there's ghettos. Ghettos are there for a reason. It wasn't because black people decided, oh, you know what? When we form our communities, let's form it and then make sure that it's run down, dirty, filthy. Make sure there's a whole lot of crime and completely impoverished. Do you think that that's what black people wanted? Because black people had communities that were thriving. Black people had thriving communities all throughout the 1900s, right? Or the early 1900s. But that was not acceptable, all right? That wasn't acceptable. Black Wall Street is but an example. There were many other communities just like that that were destroyed, where white folks went through there, hung people, firebombed churches, destroyed banks, destroyed movie theaters, not just in motherfucking Black Wall Street. But is, you know, black men, you know, what should we have done at that point in time? When we had no control, you know, all we could do is control what happens in our little communities. That's it. We didn't have the firepower of the motherfucking United States government. We didn't have anything to meet that threat. You know what I'm saying? And even if we somehow form some type of security force, I mean, look, it just is what it is. What happened with I mean, there's so many examples, right? There's so many examples, right? The US organization versus the Black Panthers, right? The US organization, government controlled. Had some foul ass Negroes that was part of the downfall of the Black Panthers, right? But that's what they do. They find what they believe are the good Negroes to go against, you know, the rebellious Negro. And that's just a reality. And then fast forward to today, not that much of a fast forward though, right? Because, you know, I mean, it's just, that's just a reality of shit. You want to act like black people, we ain't got no reason to just, we all just, shit has to happen a certain way, right? It just is mind-boggling how people don't understand this shit. How people act like we just fell out of the sky with all the advantages and capabilities, every single one of us, that we would ever need. No, it didn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. There's a reason Martin Luther King was assassinated. There was a reason Malcolm X was assassinated. There was a reason John F. Kennedy was assassinated. There's a reason for that. And what we have now is white folks are starting to feel a little bit of what black folks have felt, right? Because now they're going after what? The white conservative man. The government, right? The leftists, the FBI, all these different organizations within the government. Joe Biden sitting up here talking about MAGA Republicans or this, that, and the third. And all the raids, right? All the MAGA, all the Trump supporters getting raided. You know what I'm saying? Steve Bannon being fucking charged with money laundering and all type of shit. They going hard in the paint for the white conservative man and the MAGA Republicans, right? But There's no way that the government would deliberately oppress black people. Oh no, I can't believe that shit. No, that can happen. But you're witnessing what the government can do right now to white conservatives, to people that support MAGA Republicans, the MAGA Republicans. Now, mind you, when Biden is going after the MAGA Republicans, he's not going after necessarily Steve Bannon. He's not going after the political class of MAGA Republicans. He's going after the proletariat MAGA supporters. That's what this is really about. Because the MAGA supporters are more inclined to rebel against the government, right? They're more inclined to start a revolution. So they want to cripple those people, and then they want to turn the focus on black people versus white people. The idea that the government can go after MAGA Republicans openly, right? Because, it's easy to do. It's easy to do, right? Because they're going to get support because half the people are just so lost, right? They'll go with the narrative, right? As long as the people pushing the narrative are in line with what they think. So the people on the left, the proletariat on the left, they'll go against the proletariat on the right, because mainstream media is pushing that narrative, and because they're supposed to be Democrats and all this other shit, liberal. So these are things that the government is doing to sow division. But it's not possible for them to, perpetuate racism toward black people. There's no way there's any such thing as systemic racism toward black people at all, period, whatsoever. There are no hurdles and obstacles for black men in the country. No. The road ahead is just very clear for black people. Yeah. That's very believable. That's what they want us to believe, that we ain't got no excuses, right? We ain't got no excuses. We should be flying right now. No, that nothing happened, right? Forget about slavery. Forget about Jim Crow. Forget about the Civil Rights Movement. Forget about COINTELPRO, which demolished it. Forget about the crime bill in 1994. Forget about that. Forget about all that. That shit don't matter. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps and motherfucking you get some resources. Yeah, you should have all the resources all the white man has. Yeah. We should have. You know what I'm saying? Even though the country is majority white and the majority of the land in the country belong to white people, we should have we should have as much resources as black people, as white men and white women. That's just what it should be. That's what we're supposed to believe when people like Cynthia G pushes this narrative, right? It's not the white man's fault at all. No. If you say the white man's fault, then you're a victim and you're what do they call that? Critical race theory and all that bullshit. Man, miss me with that bullshit. All right? Miss me with the bullshit. The reality is, black people were treated a certain way for hundreds of years. And when they finally decided to say, we're not going to enslave you openly anymore, but we're not going to help you after we release you from slavery. So now you're going to have to form contract with your former slave owners to get into sharecropping, so that you owe the slave owner money for working in the fields and getting your little pennies. None of that shit matters. No. We weren't allowed to read. We weren't allowed to have education. We weren't allowed to own anything. We weren't allowed to motherfucking breathe a certain way. We weren't allowed to eat healthy foods. We weren't allowed to, none of that shit we weren't allowed to do. But somehow, we're supposed to be on top right now. The same system